Welcome one and all to another edition of Let's Talk About, hosted by yours truly, Zach Keilman. We have the second edition of the year, or actually the first now for 2020, of Tony and Michael coming back on the show. If you guys don't remember, we had Tony Stellis and Michael Grimberg, who are very close friends of mine from years past, and we talked about some excellent NFL coverage back several weeks ago. It's been a bit of time, maybe a month and a half, and now we're here. And before I ask how we're all doing, I actually want to give a shout out here to Michael. Congratulations on the engagement, by the way. I know I didn't tell you I'd bring this up in here, but congrats.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And how are you and the newly engaged doing lately?
Doing great. Other than the engagement, it's just been about the same. Just been working and saving up for a wedding now. We're planning that, and things are going excellent.
Real happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. Everything went well in Colorado, and pretty happy about it. Everything went very great.
Yeah, congrats, man. Big life moment, really, and wish you the best with you guys getting everything all set and keeping as sane as possible for the wedding.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
No problem. Tony, how you doing? I know it's a little bit of a drop compared to engagement, but how are things for you lately?
No complaints. Just taking a much needed week-long vacation back home. So getting away from the grind for a little bit.
Sounds fair, man. Happy to hear from you as well. Well, guys, if there's anything that we wanted to talk about again, was football. And, well, here we are once again. And we got quite a list of stuff that we have now compiled since our last discussion about our seasons. If any of you don't remember us three, we have fan bases that are each completely different from each other, all based in the NFC, funny enough. Me, the Bears, Michael has the Falcons, and Tony has Dallas. And sure enough, all three of us are close to equally disappointing, maybe slightly different varying degrees. Especially if you go back to me and Tony's one-on-one at the beginning of the year. This was really a downer. This was a downer. I mean, it's bad. We'll get to that, though. That's part of today. But before we go down, let's go up. We all kind of talked about this, or at least we're given some thought. And 2019 has been a pretty hectic year, the 100th year of the NFL season. Plenty of stuff that stuck out to us. And I'm going to give Michael the first run at this. We all were supposed to pick a top moment from 2019 that really made us say wow, or was really impressive or stood out the most. Michael, what'd you come with?
I think when I think of the 2019 season, just in general, from everything that I've seen, I think it just comes down to Lamar Jackson, really, and the Ravens. That's the first thing that pops in my head, and I'm sure it's pretty much everyone else that watches football or even doesn't watch football, really, just kind of keeps up with it. It's just he's the second coming of Michael Vick, and everything that came with it, with breaking records, and really, I think he just changed the dynamic of the league and how we view the quarterback now. It's not as much as a pocket passer now. It's a lot of run passing options, and just overall, I think it's just him. Really, he's revolutionizing what we view as a quarterback.
And he absolutely did stick out this year. And I like that you brought up Michael Vick, especially with you and your fandom.
Right.
I know Michael Vick's tenure didn't end on the best note,
right?
But many of his best moments in his career came under the umbrella of Atlanta with that Falcon logo on his helmet. So he's obviously remembered the most for that. And, you know, he does look like Michael Vick. Michael Vick, I mean, that's part of the storyline too this year, is he's been directly connected with Michael. And Michael's been, of course, commenting on his run this season. So completely understandable.
Definitely.
Tony, what'd you got?
So mine's a little bit more obscure, I guess. Lamar Jackson was definitely one of the top ones in my mind, but I found the reemergence of Ryan Tannehill as the moment for my season this year. You wouldn't think that the Tennessee Titans would have benched Marcus Mariota, and for them to do that and then go with Ryan Tannehill and go 7-3 with Ryan Tannehill, make the playoffs. It's amazing to me. I honestly didn't think that Ryan Tannehill was ever going to be a starting quarterback again.
I can agree with that too. And Michael, you're welcome to chime in on all these points as well. I mean, I know I do with every one of them, but Tannehill, it's impressive for his run, simply just how Miami and his tenure in Miami ended. It was a real clinker out there. Never seemed like he clicked. You had multiple coaches that were brought in to quote unquote fix or mold around him. And here he comes, coming in for Mariota just as a kind of a spark type of move. And it's been completely different ever since. I mean, yeah, they've taken losses like against Houston. They should have probably beat Houston, but they still made it in, and they still are one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL right now, even with recent losses to the Saints and the Texans. So they might be a force to be reckoned with if they can just get by the Pats.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too. Just to kind of go off that, like, if you think about it, no one's really talking about the Titans or like the Bills or Houston. Really, they're really just focusing on the most popular picks, like the Ravens or New England and so on. And they're just kind of hiding under the radar and doing what they do. Like, those are usually the teams that strike out of nowhere and shock the NFL world. So.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've seen this before. I mean, 9-7 was a New York Giants specialty record that got them to the Super Bowl twice, if we can not forget. So wild cards are dangerous. I mean, heck, even my not so favorited Green Bay Packers got in on a 10-6 record just several years ago. So wild cards dangerous. Can't forget about it. I don't know if this seems like it's going to be cheating out of this question. I don't think it is, but I'll put mine as the NFL celebration of 100 years as my top 2019 moment. I know it was season long, so that's why I think it might be cheating, but just the specialty of honoring the history of players that have come through this league, getting to reminisce on some of the top talents that maybe we forgot about with some of the NFL 100 all-decade team discussion. That's, to me, was something that was really brought a lot of fans together, I believe, because the NFL is it's a lot of rivalries, it's a lot of bad blood, divisional type of hatred, not true hatred, of course, but it was nice to see fans come together and have a common thing to discuss, and also distract us from some of the obvious stuff that 2020 brought and presented too, which we will each have something that we should have corrected for 2020, but the 100-year celebration was my top moment, absolutely.
Yeah, I like that you point that out. I think as a fan of like the NFL in general, you really just find an appreciation within your own team of the history that you've had throughout these entire, like, this 100 years that they've had all this talent, like with the Bears, like with Gale Sayers and all the greats that they've had.
Yes.
It really makes you appreciate like your team and like keeps the fans interested and wanting to look forward to the next 100 years. It's really cool to see, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, each team, at least the Bears were doing this, and I know it was 100 years for them, but like my understanding was each team would bring up top talents and like bring social media posts that would bring former talents back into the limelight. And is that what you guys were noticing, like with Dallas and Atlanta? Like, were they doing that, highlighting some forgotten stars of old, or maybe players that weren't as remembered as much?
Yeah, I think they well, with Atlanta anyway, I noticed like on their social media pages and stuff, they would like have a throwback kind of thing, like they would honor who, like Deion Sanders or whoever it might have been. Like on this day they did this, and then they'd like tag the NFL 100 or something like that, which is kind of cool. It keeps like the fans that weren't born in that time like updated and like to learn about the team that from the past. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it teaches them a lot about the history of, the different teams that they follow. Because, like you said, some people weren't there. I mean, I wasn't alive when Roger Staubach was playing, but there were like throwbacks on Dallas's page about it as well, too. So,
Yeah, and again, that's all due to the 100th season. I mean, it just shows you how far how the league has come since 1920. So it's nice to have that camaraderie for these teams. And again, considering some of the faults that were this year, that again, we'll mention some of the stuff that needs to be fixed for next year for the 101st season. But just having that distraction was really nice. That's why I put it as my top moment. Speaking of in the moment, by the way, it is Black Monday as of this recording. If you listening are not familiar to Black Monday, it is the day where basically any coaching or front office personnel get the axe for disappointing seasons or what inevitably was going to be a end of a tenure because of a poor season or what needed to be a success. So I'm going to give you guys a rundown here of what has been announced all today. Some of the stuff has not been said yet, but we kind of have an assumption of what is going to happen with some talents in the league. So these are all the coaches that have been fired this year, whether it was on Black Monday or earlier in the season. We have Jay Gruden, who was the coach for the Washington Redskins up until October 7th, actually. So this one was pretty early. We knew about this one. He was replaced with interim head coach Bill Callahan. Ended his tenure with a 35-49 record with Washington. Freddie Kitchens, fired after one season. We'll get to him, of course. He was fired just after his game finished against the Bengals, and they lost that game to a 2-14 Bengals squad. He was fired on the 29th. One season, 6-10. A lot of expectations for him that just did not pan out. Ron Rivera was fired on December 3rd. He was 5-7 at the time of his firing and finished his career with Carolina 76, 3rd, and 63 as a win-loss record, with one Super Bowl appearance and also 3 division titles under his belt too. And finally, the last one that we know for sure of coaches that have been fired is Pat Shurmur. This was today, fired with a 9-23 record over only 2 seasons with the Giants. That is their second coach in 3 years they have let go as well. Other than that, 2 coaches that are on the hot seat that we're waiting to hear their fates. Jason Garrett, which obviously Tony has plenty to talk about. We know he's meeting with the Jones family right now, and Doug Marone's meeting with the Jacksonville Jaguars ownership tomorrow on his fate. Meanwhile, in Miami, some assistants were fired on the offensive side of the ball. They are, of course, keeping Flores as well, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins right now. Brian Flores is what I was meaning to say. I just was forgetting his first name. Coaches that are safe. Matt Patricia, he's going to get a 3rd season in Detroit. I don't completely agree with that, but we'll talk about it, of course. Dan Quinn, which I know Michael has plenty to talk about. He's getting another season with general manager Thomas Dimitrov on that roster. And I got some candidates that I'll throw out as we go. But listening to all these firings, and actually the 2 that I forgot to mention for front office personnel, Washington Redskins front office personnel, Bruce Allen, he's been fired. Tom Coughlin was also fired by the Jaguars. I believe this was last week. Anyway, okay, I'll start with Michael again. What sticks out to you the most?
I would have to say, straight from my team, with Dan Quinn. The last time we were on, we were debating it when he was going to be fired, not if he was going to be fired. And we were both wrong. Because I said that he was going to be, I believe I said that he was going to be fired by the end of the season.
I believe you are correct.
Yeah, I think so too. And then all of a sudden after the bye week, they just decided, hey, we're gonna turn it on and play for our coach. And they ended up going 6-2 after the bye week, which is insane to think after we started out 1-7.
Yeah, no kidding.
And we really just had 3 wins that reshaped like how we think of the Atlanta Falcons of this year too, which would be beating New Orleans, San Francisco and Carolina all at their home turf, which at the time, Carolina was a playoff team. They were fighting for a playoff spot or a wild card at least. And we went in there and we beat all three of them right after the bye week, which, I mean, people can shape it up however they want, but I will say that they, from being what they were before the bye week to what they are now, I would say that that just shows the kind of team that they have and like the brotherhood that they always preach. That they didn't give up on their coach. And Dan Quinn made some moves actually on the bye week. He actually stepped down from calling defensive play calling.
Right.
And he gave that to between Raheem Morris and Jeff Ulbrich. They were splitting time doing that, and it actually like paid off, which was insane to think because usually that stuff doesn't work out, it seems. And I think looking back on it from our last podcast, I think it takes a lot of guts and leaving your ego at the door, referring to Dan Quinn, to just say, hey, we need to change something, and to just excuse me, to just do it and not look back, and to just benefit the team in any way that it could be a positive result.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it's funny. I'm looking at their kind of their end of the year schedule. Them going 6-2. They honestly could have finished as a 500 team. It's quite an impressive end of the year. I mean, it would have been tough. Now, the way that they were able to get past Tampa Bay, you think maybe they could have scrounged one against Tampa Bay earlier in the season. Arizona seems like a bad loss now for how that game turned out. Look, they were keeping up with the Colts at the time, week 3. So this could have been potentially a 9-7 team. Wouldn't have made the playoffs for how tough the NFC is. But for, rallying off a 6-2 final stretch of the season after the bye week, that is a pretty impressive turnaround. It does. I do have to ask this though, and I think I know your answer, but I mean, how hot is this seat next year for him and Thomas Dimitrov here? Because they finished 7.
Scorching.
Yeah, because they finished 7-9. Last year was discussed that it was kind of you can put it as a mulligan because they had an injured roster. I don't think that was the case as much this year. I mean, there were some injuries, but maybe I'm wrong. They didn't seem like they had as much of that issue.
No, you're completely right. They did have injuries across the board. I mean, short term, and then they had long term with Keanu Neal when he had a season-ending injury in Indianapolis, and the hot seat is scorching now. There's no reason not to turn it up this year or this coming up season, the following season. He has to do something. There has to be some type of change because it's not going to last very much longer. I don't know what our owner Arthur Blank is thinking or not, but I do see the potential. I do see the potential because obviously the finish of this season and the games that they won against quality talent playoff teams, but there has to be some type of change on defense, and there has to be work in the trenches that has to pan out. We continue to not protect the quarterback, and it's constantly been an issue, and it has to be resolved somehow, or we're just wasting talent. Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, Austin Hooper, you name it. We're just wasting precious years.
Yeah, because I've been impressed how well most of that roster has been held together since the Super Bowl. Obviously, everyone still brings that back. I know, if I'm right, and actually this is someone I need to ask, because Vic Beasley is going to be a topic of discussion for the end of the season. What do you think his fate is with Atlanta?
I don't know if they're going to keep him or not, but I hope that they don't. Only because we are struggling in the salary cap in that department, and we won't have any room to do anything. We'll just have to really rely on the draft. Not that free agency is the answer to everything, but it definitely helps. And I think that if we can cut him, and I would say maybe one or two more guys that aren't really producing, or maybe even trade them for a top pick in another draft. I think that that could pay dividends later. I'm not saying that it's the answer, but they definitely have to do something with that, because for Vic Beasley being a former 8th overall pick in the draft and had such high expectations, he only really had one solid season, and that's the year we went to the Super Bowl. He led the league in sacks with 15.5, and that's about all he's done, unfortunately.
It's been a sizable drop off for sure.
Yes.
For him. Yeah, it's been sizable.
Definitely.
And that's going to be a story to look out, because maybe it'll be like a Marcus Golden, that, former edge rusher, linebacker for the Cardinals. Maybe he gets a fresh change of scenery and get double-digit sacks somewhere, or maybe they give him more faith next year. Who knows? But it's a big name to have question marks around. That's why I bring him up. But yeah, good points on Atlanta. Quinn will be on the hot seat. I think one thing that, like you said, is evident. His change getting out of being a defensive play caller and coach was crucial. I think Lovie Smith obviously tested that when he was with the Bears. It didn't work. Coordinators are there for a reason. So good that he was able to hand that off, and they found some success with different schemes and play calling. So Atlanta, we know, is going to have Dan Quinn again. Meanwhile, Tony, you have the pleasure of not only being a fan base for one of the biggest layups I would consider to firing a coach or letting him go, but you also live in a market that just let go of one of the few year one coaches that gets fired, and also one of the biggest disappointing seasons in recent NFL history. What do you want to touch on first? Because I want to hear both from you. So
yeah, so let's talk about the Cowboys first. Let's get the bitter taste out of my mouth real quick. So obviously the news is that there's still no call yet on Jason Garrett and his job for next season. Apparently met with the Jones family, and they decided not to do a press conference today. So to continue to wait and see if they just let him walk, because he's in his final year of his 5-year deal. So technically speaking, his job is gone in Dallas.
Yes.
Technically speaking. But it would be a Jerry Jones move to bring him back.
It would be a Jerry Jones move to bring him back, wouldn't it?
I agree with that.
And I love Jerry as an owner, but for coaching decisions, it's just been way too many 8-8 seasons with Jason Garrett. And when you're supposed to be America's team and you're supposed to be this powerhouse in the NFC and the NFC East, there's expectations, and the guy has consistently not met expectations. But for some reason, Jerry stuck by him. So I'm really hoping that by the end of the week, we hear that the Cowboys are moving on from Jason Garrett officially, and they have begun a head coaching search, because I would say that is probably one of the most coveted positions right now.
I would think so. The only problem, of course, is how Jerry deals with coaches. We know the history of the Cowboys for how Jerry likes to have people under his thumb. Yep. Insert Jimmy Johnson right there. I got to ask you though too, because this is really starting to become not just a topic of Jason Garrett, but Jerry's control of the organization. Does his son finally take over within the next 5 years? Do they move to a GM scheme, like a general manager scheme? What do you think they should do? or will do.
I'm really hoping that Jerry takes that huge step back and lets Steven take over, because Steven's proven that he knows how to draft players. Like, look at Zeke, look at Dak, look at all these guys that we've drafted. Our offensive line is arguably still one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
And while Jerry's had input on that, the rumors have been that Steven's been slowly taking that over for the past couple of years. So if Steven takes over, I think he should move into, hiring a GM, or have Steven move into the GM role, have Jerry just stay owner and kind of just run Jerry World as it is,
Mm-hmm.
and then just let Steven have the reins, because he honestly hasn't done too bad in his little tenure as the VP.
Yeah, so far, I mean, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to say you've done wrong when you've gotten Dak and Zeke, and the record. Obviously, I know you probably deal with a lot of NFL fans that seem to rag on the Cowboys a lot, but I mean, Dak has shown that he can put up MVP numbers. It's just quarterbacks don't make a whole team. That's the thing. Obviously, that's an example of what's going on here in Dallas. So you got to get somebody that's competent enough to run the ship and also have a vision that can help to improve a team, not just go on the GM's vision.
Exactly. And I don't think Jason Garrett is that guy, because granted, Dak's playing his best season of his career. I mean, he was number 1, number 2 in passing yards.
I believe he still is going to be number 1 in passing yards to end the season, if I'm right. So I'll have to find the infographic.
Yeah. That alone just boggles my mind, because I'm looking at the stats from the games this year, and in a loss to Green Bay, he put up 463 yards.
Yep.
Threw 220 of them to Amari Cooper, but you can't be the number 1 offense, and I'm still in disbelief that the number 1 offense in the league this year is on the outside of the playoffs.
That is crazy. That does not happen often, Tony, like ever.
No, and it's 100% a Cowboys move to be the number 1 offense and miss the playoffs.
Exactly. For recent years, I agree. And I just found your stats. Guess who beat out Dak by about a little over 200 yards?
Jameis Winston.
You're absolutely right. Jameis Winston, the now famous 30-30 touchdown interception year with 5,000 yards passing attached to that, by the way.
Wow.
That's insane.
Unreal. Unreal. So yeah, it's so weird to see the Cowboys not make it, because there's a lot of opportunities. Obviously, I'm not going to lie, as a Bears fan, kind of shocked the Bears stomped on the Cowboys at Soldier Field, because I was expecting that to be a loss for how that season's gone. I'll mention that at the end of the show. I don't get that. I thought they had that one in the bag, but turns out nothing was safe for the back half of the year whatsoever.
It's the Buffalo on Thanksgiving at home. You think we'd come out the next week just fired up, ready to smack somebody in the teeth, and then we just lay down and die.
Yeah, Josh Allen did kind of lay waste to you guys on Thanksgiving.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but that's unacceptable. You can't have a top-rated offense and have no playoff berth to show for it. And that's why I said at the beginning, and many Cowboy fans too, like yourself, this has to be a layup decision, right? You can't tell me they're going to give him an extension for this. It was a winnable scenario.
Exactly. If there's any thought in Jerry Jones' mind of keeping Jason Garrett, the city of Dallas, the fan base will riot if he gets another contract extension, because you have, again, the best offense in the league, and we missed the playoffs, and we've been 8-8 with halfway decent talent in previous years. So when does a man who covets success and winning the Super Bowl and all that finally cut the cord on the mediocrity that is Jason Garrett?
And this is the time, like you said, it's the end of the contract. We talked about this too. Just put it as a mutual parting of ways and find a new coach.
Yes.
That's all you got to do. And that's the calmest way of putting it. No one gets bad blood under that marker.
No. Oh, man. Just thinking about it. Just thinking about the scenario where we re-sign Jason Garrett just makes me just shake my head already. I'm already just dreading it as a decision.
And I'll tell you what, Tony, if they sign him again, I'll have you on within the week. I just want that take alone. I would love to hear that take if he gets re-signed to like an extension or something.
Oh man, it would literally just be like an hour long of me just venting about how the organization is in shambles. So
perfect. That's
I
material.
hope your listeners would be prepared for that.
I think they'd be fine. I think they love an energetic and angry fan screaming about why the Cowboys are going to be going to hell for 3 years.
It's hard to break me as a Dallas fan. It's really hard to, and that would probably be my breaking point. Would be re-signing Jason Garrett after his contract's up.
I could not fathom keeping an incompetent coach on a team. Though I also been raised in a era for my team where it's like we let go of one person, the one person that's brought us to a Super Bowl in my lifetime, and now we've been through like a carousel ourselves. So, not relatable. Not relatable.
Absolutely. And speaking of carousels, that's a great segue there, Zach.
Yeah, it was either that or I was going to do the offensive carousel for this. I just want to know, you being the transplant, what is the vibe in Cleveland right now? Like, man.
So going off of my buddy's posts and the brands I've picked, it's really, a lot of people are saying that it was worse than them going 0-16. Like, this season left more of a bitter taste in their mouth than the 0-16 season did.
Hey, at least the 0-16 season had a parade. At least they did a parade for that.
That's true.
Going on right now, to be honest with you, but it's amazing because I will say I'm a little shocked they fired Freddie Kitchens after a 6-10 start.
Really?
To head coaching. I mean, yeah, they had these expectations. They have this talent. They got hit with the injury bug big on defense, and I think that's a lot of what.
Yeah, that's true.
But Baker regressed this season. No way to look at it. Sophomore slump or not, it was a pretty substantial regression.
You actually look at his stats. It almost looks like Jameis Winston diet. 22 touchdowns to 21 interceptions.
That was a nice like you described that perfectly.
I mean, it kind of is though.
Yeah.
Very erratic and like one thing does one step forward, one step back, almost equally.
Yeah, and so this is the organization. This is the ownership that kept Hugh Jackson on for 2 years, where he won one game in 32 attempts.
1 in 31.
Yeah,
that's the final record for Hugh Jackson.
Yeah, and Hughes like shortened season. The season before he went 2-5-1. So it's similar to Freddie's first season. So I don't know. It to me it's a little weird, but also I've heard inklings of Mike McCarthy going to the Browns, and it'll be interesting to see the vibe in Cleveland.
There's a few other two candidates as well, by the way. Actually, this is a good time. I'll give you a few that I've seen that have been named for the Browns. So a few that have come up. Dennis Allen of the Saints, defensive coordinator, former Raiders head coach. You mentioned McCarthy. There's also Urban Meyer is currently one.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think either, and I would actually be very upset if he did get the job, just for personal preference, and also mainly for how his organization seemed to end for every college stop he was at. Greg Roman of the Ravens, their offensive coordinator. Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator of the Niners. And then this guy was in line to get the Browns job last year till Kitchens was signed. Kevin Stefanski, who is the OC for the Vikings. So that's who they're looking at right now.
Interesting. And I wonder which one they'll eventually settle on, because they went through a good process last year of trying to find that perfect head coach. And then they ended up keeping Freddie.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how they do it, especially with Dorsey as a GM. He's a great general manager. It's just you got to find that coach that can utilize the talent that they have.
I think my money would be on Stefanski or Allen. Stefanski would be the leader, though, being just because he's an offensive-focused coach again. But that I think that they would want to utilize a system that Minnesota uses, where you do more with, of course, Nick Chubb, who up until a 53-yard run by Derrick Henry was going to be the rushing title leader this year. But you do a run-focused offense where Mayfield only needs to come in and make plays when it's called for. He's not the guy that's supposed to be making the plays. And just someone that can bring in some stability, because I know you're surprised Kitchens is gone. I'm not, just because it seemed like he just didn't know how to handle a roster with all these different personalities on it. And
that's true.
Obviously, some of his responses this year, for example, him wearing a T-shirt in reference to Myles Garrett hitting Mason Rudolph in the head with a helmet, that was considered an unclassy move for a head coach.
Yeah.
Just someone that just seemed a little tone deaf of the situation, So it's a clean slate thing. But like, if you want experience, honestly, out of all the coaches that are here, it'd be Mike McCarthy, because it's either that or Dennis Allen. Rivera was actually hired by the Redskins and supposed to be announced that within the next day or so. So that's a little different. But those are my choices. If I'd say so.
Stefanski would be a great one, just because being in Cleveland all season, there was a lot of complaining from fans, especially the ones I was around, that they would literally just go, like, the Browns would throw the ball 3 downs in a row, 3 incompletions, punt the ball, and they literally would just go, why don't we run the ball? And so I think if Stefanski's ready to run the ball, Cleveland fans will be behind it. And Baker isn't running as much as he was his freshman year, his rookie year here. He ran like 3 times this season that I saw myself, and only one of them I think went for a touchdown. But there was a time where he could have a game winning. He could have ran that sucker in again. I think it was against the Broncos, and
I think so.
He just walked in there and just didn't. And so I think focusing on Nick Chubb is the best idea, because he is the best player on that team. Baker is a very good complementary piece, and Jarvis Landry is their best wide receiver.
Yes.
Hands down. Yeah, Odell's getting doubled and whatnot, but even when Odell's single covered, he was dropping a lot of, wide open catches. He could make those incredible difficult catches, but when it came to just two-handed catches, it would hit him in the hands and he'd drop it. So,
much like Vic Beasley with Atlanta for Michael, Odell's kind of the same scenario right now. He's getting paid a lot for doing very little, and he is hinting on wanting out of Cleveland. So now, what do you do with him? Kind of a big offseason for him and what his future will be.
Yeah, and I think Cleveland fans realized towards the end of the season that Jarvis Landry is the guy that they need to have as wide receiver, and they need to find somebody who really complements Jarvis and can kind of step up and be that, number 2 or something like that, because Jarvis is a number 1, especially after this season. Like, you can't even argue it. And Odell kind of regressed from a number 1 in New York to a number 2 in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be another issue. The John Dorsey and whoever they hire brings in. Actually, I didn't even let you. Wait. No, I didn't let you answer this here, Tony. Who do you think was going to be? Who do you think is going to be that replacement in Cleveland?
Well, I would have said Ron Rivera was my first pick, but since he's getting hired as new Redskins coach, I would say Dorsey's an intelligent GM, so I would say that they're going to go probably. I'm with you on Stefanski on that one.
Okay. In that case, Cowboys. Who do you want to be? Cowboys at all? Which actually, let me see if I can find any that would stick out to you. And these are ones that the Giants are interviewing, so I'm just going to stick with the East focus here. So here's the ones that are being currently interviewed or are going to get interviewed by the Giants. Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs, their offensive coordinator. We also have Josh McDaniels, who was the former Denver head coach, the offensive coordinator right now for the New England Patriots. That is a hot name. Chris Richard, who is the Cowboys defensive backs coach at the moment, is the other one. So there's those you can put in consideration what the Browns have, who they've talked to. Also, anyone that doesn't. No, actually, that's about it from what I've seen, because all the rest of them either been talked with the Giants or the Browns, because otherwise it's the Panthers right now. They're looking for a coach too.
Yeah, that's tough because there's a lot of great ones out there. Personally, I know that the Browns were getting that, the approval, I guess, or, they were looking to hire the offense coordinator from the Ravens. I would love to see actually him in Dallas just to see what he could do with Dak and Zeke, and because Dak's a little bit more of a mobile quarterback, and it's kind of that similar to Lamar. In fact, that he can use his legs. Not that he's anywhere near close to Lamar's running ability. That guy can put anybody on skates.
Right.
But it's, I at this point, I just want somebody who's going to instill that fire in the locker room and really knows how to utilize the talent and surround himself with those players that can, or those coordinators that can help progress those players that we have, especially with the talent that we have. I'm also kind of hoping that Kellen Moore is out the door.
Yes,
with Jason Garrett.
I have seen those going around Twitter today, that if one leaves, the other should too. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's tough with that because our defense isn't bad, and so we'd be, if the coordinators leave with the head coach, Rod Marinelli's going, but I would love to keep Chris Richard. Dude has progressed Byron Jones into a phenomenal corner. Cheeto Bay-Louzier, Woods they've been going absolutely insane. They've been have like resurgence of the careers. They've had those steps forward. Chris Richard is a great coach. I would love to keep him on the staff. Whether or not he would be a good head coach, tough to say, because look at what happened to Wade Phillips. He stepped in from a defensive coordinator position into a head coaching position and just bombed.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty bad tenure, actually.
Yeah, I've tried to repress those memories.
Well, it's kind of, you got more memories to repress now, so it's kind of like you're almost forgetting the Phillips era because you already have a bad section right now with Garrett.
That's very true. That is very true.
Yeah. Why even talk about Phillips? We got the modern issues to deal with,
Yeah.
And for here's the deal with me, and we're gonna stick with the NFC East, and only because this is a new one. Ron Rivera, so he's hired now after being fired. Was going to be a top candidate in my opinion. He's going to be in Washington, and they also pretty much cleared house, and their front office is trying to make changes now. Surprisingly, even with Dan Schneider being an idiot, because he is. So here's the deal. I think personally, to kick this off, this is actually a really good signing. You have a veteran coach for a young quarterback that did show some good signs when he was in. They knew Haskins was going to be a raw talent coming into Washington, but for next year, at least it's a good coach to have on for that team. It also is a good coach to have on for a defense that was lacking and could use a defensive-minded coach at this moment. So that was a nice signing in my opinion. I don't know if you guys think the same, but that's how I'm starting that off.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. With their defense, yeah, like you said, they was lacking, and they just don't really have an identity right now. And I think they're taking the right steps in doing that with adding Ron Rivera as their coach. Like, he has a proven track record. He's gotten to the big game in the Super Bowl in 2015, and I think he's the top guy right now, and there's not really anyone that could really impact a team, I feel like, than Ron Rivera. That's of the head coaches that are in the market right now.
Yeah, I would say so.
As much as it pains me to say it, I agree.
That's got to be hard for you to think about, that now he's taking the helm of an NFC East team like that.
Yeah, especially with Washington's front defensive line, man. they're good. They're a good young crew. They can hit you in the teeth. They have a lot of great moves, as they showed even just yesterday. And putting that defensive mindset coach in there, they're going to be dogs. It's going to be a dogfight every single divisional game, and I'm ready for it because the NFC East has been the crappiest division in football for way too long. So whatever gets us to be competitive again, but also I'm still kind of dreading it because then we have to see them twice a year.
Right. And my final note on this, this actually is a good move for Rivera as well, because if we're talking, like you mentioned, the competitive side of things, I mean, he's getting out of a division that is mired by the Saints. And I'll admit with Michael here that the Atlanta should, for some reason, I would imagine, be much more competitive next year. If Tampa makes the right moves at quarterback or just some personnel tweaks, they could also be a threat for a wild card. So you don't want to sleep on the South. And Rivera just kind of got let go because of circumstance, if you ask me. It's a good change of scenery, all things considered. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, honestly, that's the first hiring of this coaching season. Because I mean, Callahan did all right for an interim, and he's had experience, but they were not going to keep with him. He obviously was just a placeholder. So, good move on their part. They're getting their stuff started early in Washington. Hopefully, that'll be announced within, as of the recording today being Monday the 30th. That should be announced within the day or two after this. Moving on. So today's Black Monday, but on this coming weekend, we have Wild Card 2019 NFL Playoff Football starting. And to give you the rundown of the schedule for the Wild Card after the dust settled on Week 17, starting off Saturday at 4:35, you're going to get the Bills visiting Houston to take on the Texans. The game after that at 8:15 will be what I think is actually the best matchup of the day. The Titans taking on the Patriots in Foxborough at 8:15 p.m. Saturday, the 4th. On Sunday, the 5th, 1 o'clock, the Vikings are going to be visiting the Superdome in New Orleans, take on the Saints. And the evening contest will be the Seattle Seahawks going to Philadelphia to take on the 9-7 Eagles. Guys, that is the wild card. What sticks out to you the most, or the matchup you like, and what do you think are going to be the results of the 4 games?
Yeah, I'll kind of chime in there.
I should have said who was going to go first. So go ahead, Michael.
No, it's totally okay. I thought I'd just do it. Why not, right? So I think just looking at them like on my screen, I see just a bunch of games that could go either way, really. Maybe not so much. I don't think anyway. But it is Wild Card Weekend. They call it that for a reason. With the Seahawks and the Eagles, but I think either one of these games can go either way. If I learned anything through this season, it's that every team has been exploited in some fashion, no matter if it's the Ravens or if it's New England or San Francisco. Everyone has been exploited in some way multiple times. And the first one I saw was the Bills and the Texans, and I think that if I were a betting man, and I am not, I would pick the Bills, honestly. I like what they're doing in Buffalo. They have a solid defense. They have a good running game, just smash mouth football, classic football that every football fan loves, or would love to have on their own team. And Josh Allen has his moments.
Yes.
But I think he definitely has potential, and especially over the Texans, who kind of regressed a little bit throughout the season. They kind of had their ups and downs, and I'm thinking that this is a time where they are kind of they just ran into the wrong team at the wrong time, which I think would be the Bills. For the reasons that I said, I really do think that. Although it is going to be a very tough environment, very, very tough in Houston. Those fans are very, very passionate about their football. And but I really do think that the Bills can pull it off when all is said and done.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay. I can see it too. They proved us wrong a few occasions this year, and they're close. You know, they're if anything, they are close if they don't move on. So,
Right.
you
No,
know,
I
that's
agree
the case.
completely.
Mm-hmm.
They went toe to toe with New England a few times. They maybe should have won. They should have split the games that they played, but they didn't, and that's how it goes. But they proved that they can keep up with the big dogs in the AFC, and um, maybe that's just all they need to end the drought of the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, hey, here's the good thing though. 2 playoff berths in 3 years for an organization that up until 2017 hadn't had a single playoff berth since 1999. So
Mm-hmm.
you can tell Sean McDermott's doing some things right over in Western New York.
Yeah. No, I can agree completely.
Yeah. What are your picks for all 4 besides so you had Buffalo. What are your
Okay.
picks for the other 3?
Okay. Let's see. I go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt there. I was just saying, it doesn't have to be in depth. You can do it. You can do if you feel like cuff up to
Okay.
you.
Gotcha. I picked New England over Tennessee, and it's just hard to bet against New England at home. I know
It
that
is.
I I know that the history is there and everything, and um, it's just hard to bet against good coaching, good quarterback, and it really is. It's just what it comes down to. But I'm not ruling out the Titans at all. They prove um, that they can make noise too. I just don't see it happening. I don't have a whole lot of faith in that team. I feel like they're like at the cusp of like having an identity and not having an identity. They're just like there
Very
and
close.
right. So I think ultimately I see New England winning that game. I could see it being a close game too. Um, and then in the rematch of a few years ago, the Minneapolis Miracle,
Yep.
I think I would love the I would love to see the Vikings win just because of the hated rivalry of Atlanta and New
Right, right.
Orleans. But I think New Orleans is gonna um I think they're gonna take care of business, but I think it'll be closer than what most people think it will be.
Okay.
Um I think New Orleans they're beaten up pretty bad on their defensive line and in their secondary, and um I think that they can keep up with them, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think it's just the same movie, I feel like, in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins and trying to figure out if he is the real deal, and he is not proving to be his contract of 84 million guaranteed money. I'll take Drew Brees over Kirk Cousins
Yeah.
every time. It's
Yeah.
just plain and simple.
Bigger setting. He's not Cousins obviously hasn't stepped up and you know obviously he's better when you know.
Hmm. And then the last game, I have Seattle. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFC. They've proven it time and time again. And not that the Eagles can't win either. They can win. It just not their time. I will say at home it is a different ball game for the Eagles. I think they'll channel their inner underdog from their Super Bowl winning season, but I don't see it happening.
Mm-hmm.
I I just see Seattle moving on. It's just plain and simple.
Right. It's so weird to think that this contest, the last one, the Eagles and the Seahawks could have been changed by a half yard if you
Yeah,
Monday
Less
Night
than that.
Football, a half yard, maybe even an inch, 1 inch.
yeah,
Game of
It could have
inches,
changed
baby.
everything.
yep. I agree completely with Tony. With the game of inches, that's what it is.
Same question. Yeah, Tony, same question applies to you. What sticks out to you out of these wild card matchups? Who are the teams advancing to the divisional round?
So we'll start with the Titans-Pats game, just because I'm on the opposite side that Michael is. Taking the Titans, they've proven to me, especially the last few weeks, that AJ Brown is a phenomenal wide
Mhm.
receiver. A lot
Oh,
of
yes.
complimentary
there too. Derrick Henry is a big bullying running back.
I love Derrick
Guy's
Henry.
A monster.
He's huge.
He's a monster. He's not even huge, convinced. The Patriots defense to me kind of seems to have taken that step back. Like earlier on in the season, they were they were number one scoring defense. They were doing everything. That's how the Patriots. And now it seems like they've kind of taken that step back. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if it's people have kind of figured it out. Whatever it is, I'm taking the Titans bulldozing with Derrick Henry to the next round.
I like it.
Bills and Texans. I can see where you guys are coming from with the Bills. But there's just something in me that just tells me that Buffalo is gonna Buffalo, and Josh Allen shows flashes of greatness. They're gonna Buffalo, and it's just I don't think that they can walk into Houston and take on the Texans. The Texans have a lot of weapons, especially if Will Fuller's healthy. DeAndre Hopkins is always a monster. They've got Darren Fells is a great tight end, and Deshaun Watson. I mean, people don't give him enough credit. The guy is a great quarterback. He was talked about in the MVP race last year, but not really. Kind of had to take that step back this season. And Carlos Hyde came in, got in that trade with Cleveland, and he's looking good. So
that has to be one of the most underrated trades of 2019. By the way, is Carlos Hyde going to Houston?
Yes, and Duke Johnson ended up in Houston too. So former backs ended up in Houston, Texas. The rematch though, the rematch of Vikings Saints. I'm with Michael on this one. I'm taking the Saints. They remember the Minnesota Miracle. They're gonna come out hungry, and like Mike said, I'm not gonna bet against Drew Brees. That guy has been consistently phenomenal in his career. And him and Michael Thomas doesn't drop a ball. And even with Alvin Kamara having a quiet season, they've still gotten to the point where they're at and, been successful. So I got to take the Saints on that one. The last one, Eagles, Seahawks, go Seahawks. I don't think I need to explain that.
Oh, man. I mean, well, to me, they also look at the better team. Here's the deal. My quick four, it's going to be Texans, Titans, I'm still gonna go Saints, of course, and then I'll do Seattle. Here's the thing: I'll start with them in order as I mentioned. Michael, you brought this up perfectly. Buffalo is definitely has taken a step this year. For my point, though, on the cusp, yes, they didn't beat New England twice, but that's what's holding them back. They can beat all the teams that they should, but they have not really as well impressed against playoff talent this year, which is why I sit here questioning if they can beat a Houston Texans team that has beaten the New England Patriots, by the way. That's why I do have Deshaun moving on to the divisional round this year. Indeed. As for the likes of Tennessee beating New England, I don't like betting against the Patriots. I really don't, because I've been burned so many times but the momentum is on the right side right now with Tennessee, and just watching the Pats lose to Ryan Fitzpatrick of all people with a full starting roster in New England, by the way, mind you, that's the thing. All the factors lined up perfectly for them to get a first round bye, and they failed. That's the thing.
First time in 10 years?
Yes, they failed.
Yeah,
they have a wild card, and they have home field advantage again, but to me, that proved that home field advantage really does not matter in this case, considering they lost to a 4-11 Miami squad. So I'm going to go with Tennessee just for the momentum's sake. They have all the pieces that seem to be going right. Curious to see what Belichick does, because Belichick likes to key in on the primary focused piece of any team's offense. So they're obviously going to focus on Derrick Henry and trying to force Ryan Tannehill to win games, but Tannehill's proven that when the odds are stacked against him, that this year he can deliver in crunch time. So I think that roster's enough and has the momentum to win and move on to take on, let's see, if they were to win, they'd take on the Ravens. So That's the thing. Looking at the NFC, good Lord, that would be a nightmare matchup, I think. But Look at the NFC. I mean, Minnesota just seems like lame ducks the way they came out against Green Bay, and they did play backups against Chicago, and that was an ugly game that I don't think Chicago should have even deserved to win, but still won. Come into New Orleans and probably get smacked, I think. As for Philadelphia and Seattle, Philadelphia, great run, but no, it's not going to happen. Seattle was like I said, they were inches away from having the scenario flipped with the roster that they have been holding together with injuries on the running back position and other defensive positions. It's not going to happen. Seattle will move on and play in a divisional round the next week. 2, Super Bowl picks. I know divisional round isn't the end-all, be-all to go to the Super Bowl. Foresee any for next week yet because we don't know who the opponents are next week. So let's just do the Super Bowl picks and why for each of us. Michael, you've started every single segment. Who's winning this? Who's in the Super Bowl? Who's winning? And why is that the case?
Oh, man. Okay.
Pressure's on.
I know, right? Well, I've talked to Tony about it a few times. I was just like, man, I don't know who honestly could go to who I think will go to the Super Bowl. I'm like going back and forth between like every possible scenario, and I can see every single one of them happening. But I think that I would lean more towards San Francisco versus Baltimore in the Super Bowl. I would love to see it. I think fans would love to see it too.
Rematch.
I would love that rematch. By
yes,
the way.
I think everyone would. I think everyone would. Or like even if it's a similar matchup like Chiefs and 49ers or whatever it might have been or whatever it could be, it's I had so many written down in my notes of how many different scenarios. Like I'm like, oh, this team has really good defense. Oh, but this team can like run the ball really good, and they like have all phases of the ball is just excellent. And I'm like, no, but I can see this. And I was just beating myself up over it. Excuse me. So at the end of it, I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to pick the 49ers and the Ravens. And I can definitely see it. I think fans can see it too. And for obvious reasons with the quarterback play and the defenses and being able to run the ball too. It's very similar, and I think it would be a really, really memorable Super Bowl, much like the one that they had in 2012.
Yeah, and I just like the matchup for the fact that we saw a really juicy game earlier this year between those two with the final 3 drives. Final 3 drives ending in a pretty wacky scenario. I believe it was each team had a 4th down stop that led to then a Justin Tucker field goal for the win. So, I'd love to check out those 2 rosters. Honestly, those are good picks. Tony, you on a similar line, or do you have a bit of an alteration to that projection?
I do have a bit of an alteration to that. My pick is Ravens versus Saints.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Ravens by far, offensive, defensive, kind of the most well-rounded team in the playoffs right now, especially in the AFC side, because looking at how the Chiefs they didn't kind of perform up to expectations, I guess. The Ravens are playing out of their mind. With the addition of Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson being there, that defense is alive too. They're scoring too. Got to go with them in the AFC. The NFC was tough. It could really go any way with the top 4 teams. But after thinking about it, Drew Brees versus I think he wants to get another Super Bowl, and I think this is his time to do it. I mean, the guy's getting up there in years. He's breaking records left and right. I wouldn't be surprised in the next couple years you hear him go, "All right, I'm good. I'm stepping away."
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see. I mean, their defense has stepped up, even with some of the injuries they've had. They've lost a few guys to the IR. I just think that offensively, with Traquan Smith, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Jared Cook, even down there, they're gonna give a lot of defenses problems, and they can go to really anybody
in there. The 49ers
and Taysom Hill too.
And Marshawn Lattimore, man. Can't forget him.
Yes, the Buckeye. Yeah, they've got so many different pieces that can hurt you. So the 49ers were close on my list, but I still don't know how I feel about Jimmy G and how clutch he is or how well he'll do in the playoffs. So I kind of went with that, and then the Seahawks and Packers, they're just missing a few key pieces that I think will end up hurting them in the long run to get into the Super Bowl.
Speaking as a very jealous Bears fan, the Packers to me are facade, but that's a whole nother story. They're also not in my Super Bowl projection. I think they'll get smacked by the Saints. As for me, the Saints are my NFC pick, so we're going to stick with Tony, but I am changing it completely with the AFC. It's Kansas City on my end. I want to see an explosion during the Super Bowl because last year to me was boring. I don't care what people talk about. I did not like last year's Super Bowl being a 13-3 snoozer with New England just coming in there and going, oh, we'll just make Jared Goff look like he actually is. No, that's not happening this year. New Orleans feels like they're cheated, which they were. They're going to get a Super Bowl bid, if you ask me, and they'll take revenge on San Francisco in the championship game. Over on the AFC side, you'll get the Kansas City and Ravens rematch, which, by the way, the Ravens lost to Kansas City to start the year. Keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. So you'll have that rematch. I think Mahomes is back to full strength after his dislocated knee issue at mid-season's point, and he'll take the Chiefs to the promised land with a much improved defense that is now anchored by Christian Jones, Frank Clark, and Tyrann Mathieu, mind you, to the Super Bowl. And yeah, it's going to be a blast. I don't want to pick any winners yet unless you guys wanted to, but I think that's the matchup that I would like to see. And I think that that's what's going to be ending up over in, is it Atlanta this year? Is that right? Miami. Okay.
Yeah.
I do know it's Fox that's broadcasting it, but that's only because of my job.
But
I forgot the location. But that's what I got. That's what I got, man.
Yeah, I like the Chiefs pick too. I kept going back and forth between Chiefs and the Ravens. I was like, man, that would be just like the most awesome AFC Championship game. Just light up the scoreboard and have the fans on the edge of their seats just watching.
Like just forget defense and imagine if the game turned the city was like final score 54-51. You don't know what the heck's going to happen next. It's just that scoring becomes, and then one key defensive third down stop will change everything.
Yeah,
that would be pretty.
Or anything that was like close to what the Kansas City Chiefs and the LA Rams had last season. Oh man, that would be.
Oh yeah.
That would be it right there for me. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's how I'd see that matchup. Though, like I said, anything with the Ravens would be Jackson story for this year, which of course we mentioned earlier. But I mean, just having him where he'd be year two, inspirational MVP, most likely MVP winner this year, making it and winning a Super Bowl championship would be pretty sweet also. So wouldn't mind seeing him get a W, and Wilson where year two he's a Super Bowl champ and possible Super Bowl MVP and all that. So that'd be pretty cool. That's our foresight. And so foresight beyond the Super Bowl is more just us complaining about things or looking to fix things. I mean, that's what's going to lay down to, because there's an obvious what we need to fix for 2020. That's well beyond us at this point. But one of us is going to say it, and maybe Michael will say it first. What would you fix for the 2020 season? And it can be either the league or your team.
Oh, I thought immediately, immediately when I thought, when you kind of sent this to us about the topic, I was like, man, they really need to fix officiating.
Bingo!
Like immediately, like that is just unacceptable. We are in the 21st century and we need to stop like observing these rules like it's the 30s or the 40s. Like I am just mind blown at the officiating, and this pass interference rule is not helping it at all. Like,
I'm so glad that's gone.
It's going away. It's got to go away. Just forget about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
just in general,
wasn't it the only year they were test running it for this past season.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
good.
it was for this year, and then they were going to see if they were going to expand it, but it's not. It's not. They basically screwed it up themselves. So forget about that.
Right. Yeah, the officiating, it just something has to give. Like, I don't know what it is, but it just has to. Like, there's no way around it. That's just how it has to be. Yeah. Plain and simple.
It's so egregiously bad too. There's so many calls that you just left your head scratching on. As a Cowboys fan, I'll use this as an example. The phantom tripping call against the Cowboys when they converted on 3rd and 6.
Yeah.
And we're marching down the field to go beat the Patriots in Foxborough.
Mm-hmm.
It changed the outcome of the game.
Yeah. My example of that would be, I don't remember what week. It was early. It was like mid-season in October. Go back to Green Bay hosting Detroit on Monday Night Football, and you have two illegal legal contact or hands to the face calls that were man, it was Trey Flowers holding, I believe, Ryan Bulaga on his shoulder pads, and there were 2 straight of them called, and the video evidence clearly shows that it's not that, but yet there's nothing to change it from that, even though it's blatantly obvious to almost everyone that watches the game.
There's 6 officials on the field and they can't figure it out.
There's replays that are showing in the game that's not the call. How can you not change that? It was so bad. That's really, besides that, why I brought up the 100-year celebration being the distraction was because this was the other distraction, the one that I don't like talking about. So, yes, Michael, I was expecting you to bring it up first. So, somebody, if it wasn't, and I'd be shocked if I had to do it because I have other things I could do. But congratulations.
Yes.
We got to the obvious.
I
don't know. You win a lot of kudos from me.
Hey, thanks.
I got an empty Snickers wrapper here. That count? It's an item. It's material value of some sort.
Sweet.
See here, you can hear it. ASMR.
That's mine now.
Yep, it's all yours. It'll be sitting here for you.
Right. I'll come and get it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think another thing too, that I feel like should be changed. All I want is a structured overtime with no ties. That's all I want. Like, plain and simple. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, I think we've gotten to the point where college football overtime rules are plain and simple and needs to be in the NFL. That's just how I see it.
That is the one thing that, and I'm not usually a guy that prefers college football over the NFL, but that is one thing the NFL should adapt so I don't have to see one score and that's it. Because that makes no sense. You have a clock. Why can I not go score again?
Mm-hmm.
Why the hell is the game over because one person scored? That's stupid.
Yeah.
Right. I agree completely.
Or even better, when they shortened it, I think it was this year or last year, they shortened it from 15 to 10. And then the week 1, we had a tie. And last year we had 2 or 3 ties?
Yeah, let me think here. Yeah, because we only had one tie this year, and that was Detroit and Arizona, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. That should be something that I don't know why that can't be implemented. I mean, part of it might be time restriction things, but that makes no sense because you can play all 10 minutes and have a tie. So why?
Right.
I don't get it. It's like the playoffs last year when New England and Kansas City. Mahomes has no chance to respond, so Kansas City wins because they get one drive. Like, seriously? I don't get to see Mahomes try and answer?
Yep.
Yeah.
Stupid. Okay. Well, the obvious is out of the way. Tony, what do you got for me?
So mine was
mainly the accountability on the refs. You know, I think part of it, they should get docs and pay for how, like, do kind of what the NBA did and like look at the final, like with their final 2 minute report, but just they need to be critiqued. They need to get their shit together because it just makes the NFL a laughing stock.
Yeah.
And then it's tough because other than the obvious, it's really hard to kind of pick something. If I have to pick something I'm gonna go, since we did 2 league ones, I'm gonna go specific to the Cowboys. It's been said all year, and it's one of those things that has bothered me all year. Is when the Cowboys start slow, they barely ever recover from it.
Okay.
They need to start fast. They need to get that front office in line. They need to get Amari Cooper signed because that kid is phenomenal.
Oh yes,
darn right.
Franchise tag Dak. Go sign Amari. Let's worry about Dak's contract next year. The kid wants to play for the Cowboys. They all want to stay in Dallas. And the last thing you want is for them to go someplace else, come back to Dallas as an opponent, and beat the living crap out of them.
And, as long as they don't have the cap, as long as they have the cap for the tag, I kind of like the idea because you're basically daring Dak to do the same thing he did this year for stats, but try and see if they can win more games with that. You know what I'm saying? Because, statistically, he was in MVP style of levels. It's just the record obviously doesn't hold up well. So can he do it again? That's the question.
Yeah, so it's just a fluke year or, prove it next year. Let's franchise tag him. Let's keep him. Cooper has proven he can make these phenomenal catches. He's done it time and time again this season. Hell, even last yesterday.
Yeah, just yesterday for us.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I just need to see them take that step forward. I'm so tired of mediocrity, man. There's expectations you have to live up to, and I'm tired of 8-8. And next year when you have us on, I'm gonna call it 8-8 again. I'm gonna make sure my expectations are lowered. I'm not gonna say 12-4.
Ooh.
Hey, I said 11-5, and we both were both high on winning for this year. It's bad. Looking back now, it just looks bad.
Potential. And then it just never showed up. We were 0-8 when we didn't score 30 points.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
We were 1-7 against playoff teams.
Well, I'll tell you what, the game that sticks out to me with that stat is the game against Minnesota. They lost by 2 in a 28-26 game. And it was like a back and forth game the whole time, and it's a 2-point loss. Like seriously, that's a mind-blowing stat, Tony.
Yeah. It really is.
Unreal.
And then my favorite thing is going and beating down the LA Rams 44-21. And then the next week, when you can win the division, you have the destiny in your hand, and you lay an egg against the Eagles in Philadelphia.
Against Carson Wentz and his cleanup crew. It's like the amazing how little there is in that receiving corp and the running backs room because, yeah, I'm shocked they're even there now.
God, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to follow suit with you because, like I said, my only other thing that needs to be changed for 2020 is really just officiating. I could argue personally my little kind of personal laughter towards any of the Los Angeles teams because of how LA's not receiving the Chargers. Now they should have never left San Diego, but I'm waiting to see how that pans out next year when they actually have a stadium to play in, and maybe they'll get some trickle from the Rams fans that somehow show up to Rams games. But my real issue is now it's going to be Zach's 5-minute rant on why the Bears made me really upset this season and why I'm going to be wanting everyone to get their heads chopped off.
That's what I'm here for.
Good Lord. Because this comes back to me and Tony talking. I said 11-5. I didn't expect the bar to be too high. I thought that was a reasonable expectation. I thought that beating Green Bay was possible because, all the signs were there that Mitch could take another step. Nothing of the sort happened whatsoever. It's almost like he burned his playbook after the wild card last year and said, Yeah, coach, I know this. And tried to play off like he didn't need another copy of it, and then it was too late to learn that you need another copy of it. So that's what we saw this year. A Mitch that looked confused, scared, and apparently had self-confidence issues. That expects you to be confident in yourself is probably, if it wasn't for New York, is probably just as ravenous against their sports teams. They portray them. There's obviously that. I also have issue, of course, with Matt Nagy. Doesn't know how to call a game. One game he'll play his own offense and loves it. Next game he'll actually play to the strengths of his own team. They win because he played to the strengths of his own team like he should.
Imagine that.
Play action,
shocked.
Action passes, I formation running, not zone blocking, because I don't like zone blocking. And Tony, I don't know if you're the same way. I don't like when I have to be told, yeah, just pick the guy that's nearby you. No.
Yeah, from playing days, no, I don't like that. I need.
Why should I have to have a zone as a lineman? That's a basketball term.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Just let me go out and hit somebody, and I'll open up a hole. Like that's all you need me to do.
Yeah,
and there are players that excel at that. Like I'll give the Dallas line credit for this. They excel at the zone reads, but not every single lineman out there is able to do that. And so you have to play, like you said, play to the strengths of your team. If your guys are good at just hitting somebody and open up a hole, oh man.
Yeah, Nagy's terrible at that. Let's just say that. I don't like that style of blocking. Obviously, Dallas can do it because they have Zeke Elliott behind them.
Yeah.
So he obviously knows how to run well. He's a rushing title guy. He's one of the best in the league. We have David Montgomery, who was supposed to be better than he was, but he's very indecisive learning. And then Tariq Cohen has never been between the tackles runner. So it was doomed from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a lot of stuff. Coaching wise, just figure something out and pick your style. Stop jumping around every week. Like they're doing play action passes the week before they play Green Bay. And then they forced Mitch to play the worst way he can against Green Bay again when they went to Lambeau, which is in the pocket. He's not a good pocket passer. Why are you making him stay in the pocket? Why are you doing these things that I know you realize don't work for him? That's stupid. It's just dumb. And then so next year's, of course, with that, figuring out what they're going to do with Mitch. Are they going to draft a quarterback? Should they just pick up a quarterback off free agency right now? Which, if you go on Bears Twitter is just a bunch of people that think they know what they're doing and are trying to be elitist about how their views are, which is so stupid. I don't get why everyone thinks they're right. They're not all right. There's no right answer to this. There's nothing that's right about it.
How do you feel about Khalil Mack's subpar season?
I feel about Khalil Mack. Winning year. I think a lot of it's based on that once Akeem Hicks went down, those of the Bears really don't have another good pass rushing presence, really. I mean, their next sack leader was a journeyman middle or defensive tackle by the name of Nick Williams. So kind of shows you that things did not go the right way. And I didn't think he deserved to be a Pro Bowl player. He actually stated in many press conferences that he didn't think he deserved the nod. He thought it was an embarrassing season for him. So,
yeah, you're going to tell me that Khalil Mack got it over like Jalen Smith, and no, first off, no, or even just giving Van Der Esch a nod at attempting it, even though he missed like the last 5 games.
Yeah,
like. You're going to tell me that Khalil Mack had a better statistical season than other players out there?
No.
Absolutely not. Same thing with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers should not be on the Pro Bowl roster.
No, he had a down year this year. And that's atonement to them talking about how we grind out and get ugly. It's ugly because he played ugly, and the team actually is just getting lucky. I don't care what Packers fans say, but the fact that they're 13-3, I'm questioning how they got there.
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, yes, okay, but okay.
But other than that, no, you're right. Other than that, no idea how they got there. No idea how people thought that Aaron Rodgers is a Pro Bowl quarterback this year, especially considering Dak didn't get in and Dak finished second in total passing yards for the season. Not sure how that works, but okay.
Yeah, silly. Just silly. Yeah, So mine's mainly on the Bears. They just got things that there's a lot of stuff they have to figure out this year that I didn't expect them to have to. 8-8. I'm surprised they even finished 8-8. I thought they were going to lose to Minnesota's backups yesterday until Eddie Pinheiro got a field goal. So, woo-wee.
I thought he might doink it at one point during that game, and I was like, oh no, this is not how the Bears season's going to end again, is it?
No. That's it. That's it for me. I'm good. Obviously, I'll plenty more to talk in my own solo stuff, but all the league issues are obviously officiating on my perspective anyway. So, yeah, that's about it. As we wrap up, that was kind of all I had on this slate. Any final thoughts for you guys, or stuff that maybe we should address before we're done? Because I have no idea when we'll meet up again. Really.
I don't think I've got anything specifically. I think we all kind of vented our frustrations out today.
Fair enough.
We did.
Okay.
I like the directions of the playoffs. I think it's gonna be awesome to see, and looking forward to next season already.
Yeah. Onward to 2020.
Onward.
For me, onward to the XFL. That's what I've got.
Right.
Onward to baseball season.
Onward to baseball for Tony. Social media plug time, fellas. Michael, I'll let you go first.
I am on Facebook. All you gotta do is search my name. I'm there. And on Instagram, I believe off the top of my head, it's M_Grimberg35.
All right. Tony?
And then, I'm on Facebook. First name, last name, Tony Stenilson. Honestly, sound it out. You'll be able to figure it out, and I'll probably pop up. And then I'm on Instagram as well. Not sure what my handle is for it, and kind of not really on that one from time to time. But I am on Twitter. I realized in the last one I gave the wrong Twitter handle. So it's just at Tony Stenilson. So yeah.
Good job. Way to give the correction. I give you props. And gotta get it right. That's crucial, man. Because I can't edit you saying that. I cannot mimic your voice, Tony, or put the phone call filter that is specific to your Discord chat. So I'm just saying. For me, you can. I've got multiple now. I've been trying to expand a bit. Facebook and Twitter are my primaries. You can check out Let's Talk About, hosted by Zach Keilman. That is where the podcast for this episode will be at. You can also find that post on Twitter, which is my Twitter, which is at ZK Podcast, or the Let's Talk About podcast. I also have converted my Instagram to be the Let's Talk About Instagram page. Again, you can find posts for when these episodes come out on Instagram at ZK Podcast. And I'm also putting these up on YouTube now. So if you don't want to go through just listening to the audio and just want to stare at a title card, well, then there's YouTube for you. So, and you can find that on your own. It's just look up Let's Talk About, hosted by Zach Keilman. Fellas, that's it. Glad to have you on, as always. It's been a blast.
Yes,
really
thanks for having us on again. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Always glad to shoot the crap about football or any sport. So.
Oh, it's been It's been fun. It's been fun. Until we meet again, which at some point, don't know when. I just made that up as a song, that was a song. That is a song. It's weird. Until we meet again, guys. This has been the Let's Talk About episode with me, Tony, and Grimbo. So long, everyone. Stay tuned.